Whoa!
Happy Halloween.
Awesome. Wow. She is dressed to impress today. Miss Schneider looking great on Halloween.
This is my Black Widow spider over here, and I am Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Wow. Amazing. Awesome. My kids would love to see that. I'm going to have to show them this clip afterwards. So awesome. Spooky, spooky. How are you trading these spooky markets here, Mish?
Exactly. This is definitely your trick-or-treat market for sure. Well, I have just a few positions on in the discretionary. We're still pretty well in a full boat on our algos. Lots and lots, of course, growth stocks in there that have done very, very well. I rotated back into silver yesterday after going flat. And I'm really, really hot on the biotech space. But, we should talk about the tricks of the market before we talk about the treats.
Ooh, talk to us about tricks. I want to know what tricks this market is up to, because this market has been a little bit tricky with a little bit of chop.
Yes, and there are some real weak areas that, I mean, my favorite expression has been now for about a month is that you don't want the weak links to turn into anchors. Weak links obviously are not enough to stop the rally in the growth stocks. I mean, you guys were really talking about that. I was listening for a while now. But yet, those weak links, as we know, can become anchors. So we don't want to see that. So, I always refer back to my modern family, my economic modern family. And we have to start with Dear Granny, because we are going into a season where the consumer has high expectations going into Black Friday, et cetera, and the holiday shopping. And yet, poor Granny's not doing so great right now. XRT has been under the 50-day moving average, and I anticipate will stay there today for 18 days in a row. So that warning is an actual warning. It's broken down not just under the 50, but yesterday it broke down under the 6-month calendar range. So now we have to start looking at the 200-day moving average to see if that comes up as support. So there's your canary in a coal mine. Then you have your cockroaches, right? Thanks to Jamie Dimon. That's regional banks, KRE. Again, weak link, not exactly at this point yet an anchor, but could turn into one. So why? Of course, that's tied not only to a lot of the rural Americans who go to their rural banks to borrow money, to start businesses, to build homes, to buy homes, but it also represents commercial banks and is also part of the Russell 2000 in terms of some of those commercial banks and the financial component. That too is not doing all that well right now. That's been under the 50-day moving average for even longer. And now you have the Russell 2000, and that's trying to make new highs many times. The question is, does it do it finally at some point? Or was this the start of the breakdown? And that's where you have to confer with the other members. Now, of course, Sister Semiconductors, that's on its own planet. And then, but I think we have to talk about the two kind of maybe positives in the family besides, and that would be biotech, IBB. Mm-hmm. I'm really liking the biotech space. Biotech made an all-time high in 2021, but I think we can kind of erase that as a chart point because that was during COVID, right? So everybody was doing vaccines and things. But now we've made a new multi-year high apart from the 2021, and it's looking good. And some of those stocks are really interesting. We can get into that in a bit. And the last thing before I keep quiet here and let you guys speak is that IYT, let's put up transportation.
Sure.
I'm calling this agnostic, right? Because it's been up and down, up and down, up and down around that 50-day moving average. It closed yesterday back above it. As we're getting ready to open this morning, IYT is, I think, up slightly. I have to, for some reason, I can't get all my symbols here on. Well, what is, do you know what the bid offer is, guys?
In
on IYT? Yeah, I can give it to you.
Yeah.
It's really wide. It's 70.43 to 72.55 because it's thinly traded during the
So you don't want. So that's fine.
Really wide.
Basically, what we have to say is what could possibly not only prevent Granny, regional banks going lower from here, or maybe stopping the train and even semiconductors, would be if transportation starts to pick up. That would be a positive because it's still a cyclical and it does represent maybe some expansion in the economy, particularly as we're getting more and more into some reshoring. That would be a positive, and that could help the entire Modern Family, including small caps, including Granny. So we're counting on you, Trans, to do your job and stay over that 50-day moving average.
It is. It's clinging to it as we speak. All right, let's go to some individual issues here in the biotech sector. There's quite a few that you put on here. I noticed VKTX had a nice move yesterday, a stock that was left for dead. I think that probably got that extra boost yesterday, right? Wasn't someone sweetened the bid for, what is it, Medsera or something like that? But let's talk about some of your biotech favorites here.
Yeah, well, we've been in Viking Therapeutics for a while. They are related, of course, to the diet drugs, vanity trade. That's been a big theme of mine this whole year. And actually, the truth of the matter is, I think besides the diet drugs still having tremendous opportunity to the upside as we end this year and go into 2026, there's so much news going on from microdosing to oral medication, research that has come out for how it's done great for diabetes and heart disease. I only think the future for this whole space is good. And Viking Therapeutics has had a nice move based on the fact that it is doing oral drugs for the dieting. Mm-hmm. So that's been a great mover. I mean, you can see the chart here. It's not quite up near the highs, but yesterday was a nice gap up. And so far, it's coming in this morning. Another looks like about 1.78% higher.
That's right.
Based on where it's at this very second. So that's certainly one. I think 40 is going to be kind of a psychological area for that. Right now, it's at 38.85.
Okay, here's one that is one ugly chart, and I have it. It's ugly. Pfizer.
Yeah, it's really ugly, but you know, one thing I think we've all learned this year is that if Trump calls out a company, you should pay attention, right? So first of all, they won a bidding war with taking over a company. Again, they're trying to get into the diet drug business. I like the opportunity here only if we can get a move over 25. We keep stopping at 25, except for that big spike that you see there at the early October. That was the announcement with Trump that they were going to lower their prescription drug prices. And then, of course, that news went away and it fell back to the doldrums where it's been. But it means it's on his radar. And they are trying to make strides with the diet drugs, as I said. And they've been an old company. I mean, Pfizer has been around for a very long time.
Yes.
So I think 25 would be my number. We have no position in this, but I'm watching because if we can get through 25 and stick, we have a pretty good low risk. It shouldn't break 23 after that or you're gone. And that's a good reward, by the way. I like
most
that.
Most of the drug stocks have been a victim of just this insane tech rally. I mean, the rotation here has just kept them under pressure. Who cares about a 7% dividend when you're making 70%, in 3 months on a stock like Oklo? Mm-hmm. I mean, if the market ever goes into, like we always think of gold as insurance, you wonder if almost the drug stocks couldn't play a little bit of the insurance game here too. And I'm not talking the health and provider, I'm talking the actual drug stocks because they got dividend support, and I think if the market ever went into a down cycle, I think these stocks would really start to pick it back up. But I mean, Pfizer, 7.1% dividend, which is actually pretty safe when you look at the balance sheet. It seems like, wow, we're back to where we were 20 years ago. I mean, are we done with drugs? Is maybe, if physical AI, if Skynet comes and kills us all, I guess they don't need drugs anymore. But I mean, that's a pretty bad case scenario there. I think long term on some of these drug names, this maybe is a time to start shopping, no?
Yeah, well, take a look at Moderna, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
Moderna since 2021, right? So now all of a sudden, it hits my radar yesterday because it has this explosive move. Now, this might be the last of the stocks that I would necessarily buy for any kind of long-term position, but for day trading, yesterday would have been a lot of fun because there are takeover news. Yes. So, this whole merger and acquisition that we've seen in the tech space could start to trickle more into the biotech space as well. And of course, we haven't even talked about biotech and AI. That's a whole other deal going on. That's where Tempest has had this huge move because of AI data with biotech right now. And by the way, what's interesting about biotech, it really is two areas. It's the traditional medicine and pharmacology, immunology, and then it's biofuels, by the way. Interesting. And that put Valero on my radar yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, because they're one of the leaders right now in terms of dealing with biofuels. And if we're going to have a let's look everywhere, all hands on deck for energy, this could be, biofuels could be something that things go back to at some point. At this point, it's been really kind of dead, except Valero's done pretty darn well. But my point is, yes, this whole space has so much opportunity in it. HIMSS would be a part of it, but that's got its own crazy thing going on. And the other thing in the biotech space that I think is really interesting is outside of that, what's happening with health insurance? You mentioned it, Dennis. What is happening? So it's becoming so expensive. And I talk to friends. I mean, I don't have to worry because I'm of an age where I can get taken care of. But we don't need to say that age because you remember I'm a black widow spider. I don't, I live forever. I just eat men as they come along. So after what is it with black widows, right? They have sex with the male spider and then they eat them and kill them, right?
Oh gosh, that's
no, it's true.
Good. Doesn't sound fun at all.
No fun. Not even for me. So anyway, the point is this. What's happening in health insurance is that more and more people who cannot afford health insurance, especially if they work for a company that doesn't provide, or self-employed, or people who are not working, which we know is increasing day by day, they're buying catastrophic health insurance just in case hospitalization kind of a thing. And they're going to Teladoc, or Amazon is also starting a sort of an online doc service. But Teladoc came on my radar because it's not quite what we're talking about with biotech drugs, but it is something to look at. Put up TDOC.
Teladoc, okay.
Yeah, Teladoc. It's another one. It was $60 at one point. It dropped all the way down to like $3 something. And now it's trying to get back over $5, really. And the thing is that this is a company now that you can just call them up, get an appointment with a doc. It costs, I think, $50 if you don't have a plan. Microsoft actually has covered this for their employees. So you can get Teladoc for free if you work for Microsoft. That's a big company that's paying attention to this right now. And so I think that's the future. Like, I can't afford to go to a doc, but I can afford $50 out of pocket if I'm sick. And then they can also they can prescribe medicine. And if you need something more than that, then of course you go on from there. But this is, I think, the future here of medicine is not the traditional health insurance. I know United Health did well, and they're obviously the biggest insurance company, but still, I'm talking to people, and the fallout of not having jobs or jobs that are cutting back on insurance, that's where they're going.
All right, Mish, let's talk a couple commodities here before you go. I know you're following very closely. And you said you dipped your toe into the silver market here. I'm looking at the SLV here. Big old move back up to that high, all-time high, and a turnaround, a pullback, still above the 50-day. What do you like about silver?
Well, first of all, I follow the gold to silver ratio very carefully. And that's really been my guide. Like, for example, when it completely blew out, when gold made its first big move up and the ratio blew out at 105, I knew that wasn't sustainable. So it meant that silver was really, really cheap. And that turned out to be the case. But then it dropped all the way down to about 80, 79-ish, which was the low. Last time we had a low, which was in 2024, was also at around 79, 80, and it popped. So we got out of our silver, we got out of our gold, it looked toppy, and of course that turned out to be true. But I noticed the ratio went up to 85, which was tremendous resistance, and then it started to roll back down, and it got down to about 82. So it's still not breaking down to where silver can go parabolic, but it was enough to give me a reason to get in. Silver, the difference between gold and silver, obviously, is, first of all, that ratio could be inflationary. And right now, we're not really seeing major signs of inflation. Number two is it's an industrial metal, and we know there's been a lot of talk about short supply. And if we are going to play nice with China, that could give a boost to a few commodities, not just silver. But silver to me is still not done. I did not see a top in silver. What I saw was everybody started getting super bullish at the top. You know, in the old commodities expression, when the shoe shine guy tells you it's time to buy gold, you know, the top is nigh.
All right, let's move on to natty gas here. You the Boyle ETF, and I believe you have a stock to go with that, AMLP.
Right. So Boyle, I've been playing in and out of Boyle. It's a leveraged ETF. So I like it. I like the leverage in this because you can trade with a smaller position than you would, let's say, UNG. I can't stand UNG. I've taken it sort of, I watch it. And I watch, obviously, natural gas. So far, I'm looking at the December contract. It's back over 420. No double entendre there. But interestingly enough, in the December contract, 420 would be a good breakout in natural gas. But Boyle has made a bottom, and it's just been going sideways. Again, it's in energy. Nuclear, yeah, wonderful. I think it's the future, but this is something we have in abundance now. Obviously, from a geopolitical concern, there might be situations with the sanctions we've put on Russia. And so I like it right here. And we're getting into seasonal winter where natural gas demand grows. So, yeah, we bought Boyle. I actually added on a dip, which I don't usually do. I don't usually add when something's going against me. But this is how convinced I am that if I can just sit tight, this thing will explode at some point. That's my thoughts on that.
One more, Mish, just before we let you go. I want to get your thoughts on the small caps because we've covered a lot of different areas here, and IWM is 2,000 stocks that have perked up. And I mean, interest rates going down is obviously going to be helpful to a lot of these smaller companies that obviously borrow a lot to finance their operations here. We just kind of been hanging out, not really doing much for the last month, but we had a good move from 220 to 240 and made new all-time highs for the first time after 3 years. Right. Thoughts here on IWM before we let you go?
Well, today's the end of the month, and I have this really kind of cool Bollinger Band on my monthly chart. You know, I love monthly charts. I use the 23 and the 80-month moving average, measures a 2-year and a 6 to 8-year business cycle, and I think that's extremely important. So that's why I look at that. But essentially right now, it is showing that IWM has to close above 247 this month for it to be really strong. However, if it doesn't, it's still over the 50-day moving average where we just talked about retail isn't, transportation sitting right on it, and regional banks isn't. So that tells me that we could see it separate from the family if it stays here. But I still want to see right now 247. So if we can't close above it today, and it would be amazing if we could, then I would really want to see what happens next week and how the whole family, like I said, weak links becoming anchors, transportation saves the day, and Gramps, my IWM, can continue his move higher. I'm not dismissing a great rotation, but I think I heard you say this before, Dennis. We get it for like a day, and then it goes right back to growth. So
yes, it does.
Right. So we need something more sustained there.
Okay, Mish, before we let you go, you've been working, besides markets, you've been working on some other projects here with the Modern Family. Could you give us a little bit of an update?
Well, those people who know and seen my website know that I have created characters, actual human beings that go with each one of those sectors. Because for me, I needed some level of a personification to explain it to me. That's why you're hearing grandpa and grandma and sister and big brother bio, etc. So what we're doing is we're bringing them to life. Right now, one of the wonderful things about AI and technology is that it has made it possible to do things we could have never done before. In fact, just in the last couple of months. So stay tuned for that. And the last thing, I can't tell you more because I have to wait for registration copyright before we release it. But one thing is one of our characters, and we didn't even talk about this, was Bitcoin Bro. And Bitcoin, is having its own issues right now. But Dennis, would I be able to record your voice? We can do this separately for about 60 seconds talking about Bitcoin. It doesn't matter even if it makes sense, and use your voice for our character.
Sure. Anytime you want. You just let me know when you want to do that.
Okay, I will send you separately an email or
Okay.
a message on X, and we will set that up. But thank you. Yes, so it's very exciting, and I think it's going to be, well, nothing like this exists. So I think it's going to be a real plus for people who just want entertainment and also get subliminally some education at the same time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I look forward to that.
Yeah, Mish. Yeah, you mentioned that, and you mentioned the Bitcoin guy is from the Motor City, right?
Exactly. We made him from Detroit, Michigan, even though nobody really knows, since the right? Nobody really knows where Bitcoin started from in terms of, the what is it, Hashimoto? What's the, no.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so I
Okay.
decided I like Detroit, Michigan. Why not?
All right, we got to get you to the Motor City. We've been on the line with Mish Snyder, chief market strategist, chief strategist at MarketGauge, guiding us through these markets. We'll be dialing you up again real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mish. Happy Halloween.
Okay, what do we got there, Brad?